What is happening, all of you sexy warriors out there? Welcome back to the channel. Today, I have a very special video for you guys. We have Rob Epifania here from the OTG universe. Did I pronounce your last name right? Is it
That
Epifania?
was yeah, that was perfect, man.
Oh, wow. Okay. I,
You
I
don't have to
wasn't
cut it out
sure.
now. Now you just use it.
Okay, perfect. Well, Rob, thanks for being here, man. Could you give us a little quick background about who you are and what you do?
Sure, man. So Rob Epifania, right? My name. You got it right. That's good. That's a good start. So I mean, my story kind of runs back. I always played high level athletics, basketball, volleyball. 2010, got into a motorcycle accident, got hit by a car. A lot of bad stuff happened, but largely speaking, the lingering effect of that is I can't lift my right foot, have a disability. Playing sports was kind of over at that point. It took me about a year or so to kind of get back into normal life. And 2011, I found some classes, defensive classes, hosted by a guy named Chris Fry, Modern Defensive Training Systems. Took the class, got hooked, took every class he offered for a year, got instructor certified 2012, started helping him until 2018. 2018, I started my company. And in this time frame, I've been training with guys that blend the lines of performance-based shooting and tactical shooting, guys like Frank Proctor, Travis Haley, Tactical Performance Center, a bunch of other guys. Started competing in 2018, achieved the rank of Grandmaster in 2021. I've been top 20 twice. I've been top 25 at nationals several times. So always looking to grow. And I run a company, Systematic Performance Concepts, or SPC for short. And robepifania.net is my website. I got an online program, and that brings us up to speed for now.
Yes, exactly. An online program. It's called the Accelerator Program, right?
Yes,
Am I right
sir.
on that?
Mhm.
So that was something that I recently, like literally just recently, like 2 days ago, got into, and I just have barely scratched the surface. But let's talk a little bit about that because I want to ask you what your main goal with that is, but also I wanted to tell you what my main takeaway or what my experience was. Again, a day or two of watching videos and going through the coursework. But do you want to kind of give us what the idea behind that is and what you seek to accomplish with that?
So what do I seek to accomplish? I seek to accomplish to help as many people as I possibly can. So my intention when it comes to helping anybody, and in this case, shooting happens to be my biggest passion and the thing that I enjoy the most currently in terms of my own personal development. My I'm naturally geared towards mentoring, teaching people. So I like helping and sharing all my information. Anybody who talks to me on Instagram, I'll reach out to people, and I reached out to you too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Anytime someone new follows me, I reach out to them, or I try to reach out to them when I have some time, just to chat. Like, hey, let you know I have some stuff here. I have a free lesson series that I give to everybody to help them out with a lot of advice and tips, and then I just have a quick conversation. How can I help you? So, the online program kind of came about, and well, actually COVID was what started that, because in COVID I started, actually it was a little before that, but I started doing online lessons primarily as a way to just help people. And what ended up happening is when you do them correctly, you can really see a lot of things, and you can help them while you're here and they're wherever they are, right? So I've helped people all over the world. I would do online lessons with people from Germany, Switzerland, Australia, like, which is pretty cool, like being
Yeah,
able to
that's
do
really
that.
cool.
I did a lesson with a guy named Jim Kadingo, right? And he's a marketing and business guy, but he likes guns, like shooting. Helped him out a lot, real quick. And he's like, he recommended me some material, so I started studying the material and got back to him on saying it was awesome. So him and I came up with this idea. Let's start this whole online training platform. The intention behind this was, what would I tell myself if I were brand new? So I made it with someone like me in mind. How would I help that person go from start to where I am currently in that within an online structured training program? So online is very right. Online is useful. We're doing this online. You're in, I think, Texas, right?
Yeah.
And I'm all the way in the communist Republic of New York. and and now we have the opportunity to do this together to help more people, right? You have 124,000 followers, like, there's on YouTube, and it gives us the opportunity to reach millions of people, which is the bigger picture, right? Being able to impact people's lives and being able to help people from wherever they are in this kind of fashion from the convenience of their own home at a relatively inexpensive price point compared to like going to an in-person class. That was the whole purpose behind this, you know.
Yeah,
But
and my experience personally, and we talked about this a little bit on the phone before the call, was that I grew up playing sports as well. I've always been part of, been playing football since I was 6 years old up until I graduated from high school, and I always thrived in this team environment, having a structure, having some sort of framework for how I need to be training. And what I've struggled with on my own channel, and when I get these done to review, right, like it's a big responsibility on my end because this is could be potentially life saving equipment. And so, again, I always disclaim I have no police or law enforcement background, no military training, anything like that. But also, I shoot a lot. I shoot a lot more than most people, and I've worked very hard to get to the point where companies will send me things, and so I have the ability to review a lot of things that people are considering buying with their limited budgets. So I take the responsibility very seriously, but I always struggled with how do I structure this review? Yeah, of course I can accuracy test it. Yeah, of course I can, do a build drill, but speaking specifically about the pistol stuff, because again, I think, and you'd probably agree with this, 99% of the time during civilized society, if you're going to get into a gunfight, it's probably going to be with a pistol
mhm,
at close range. And so
mhm,
that's a really important thing if you're recommending buy A or Z, right? And
yeah,
so, but in that journey, I also have a huge passion for the Second Amendment, huge passion for guns. And I don't want to just talk the talk. I want to actually improve as a shooter. And so when I saw you come up and when you reached out and we started talking a little bit, I was like, all right, I like what you stand for. I like what you're doing. And also just scratching the surface of the accelerator program. Again, there's a 7-day free trial. We'll link in the description. This isn't just a sales pitch for the accelerator program. I actually believe in it. That's why we're talking about it. But
appreciate
it's
that.
it's really cool because I was sitting and I just again, we talked about this earlier. I was sitting in my garage with my laptop open with your accelerator program up, and I was listening to you in my AirPods. My daughter was asleep on the couch, and I always keep the door cracked so I can hear her if she wakes up. And so I didn't want to put my shot timer on blast and wake her up. So I was using your shot timer in the video to train literally like you were standing next to me. And the only issue was I was trying to keep up with how fast you were going, and I could hear you reloading. And I'm like, oh, I'm behind on the reload, and then I would try to rush it, and that's a problem for me, especially where I'm at today. So, but it was really cool to feel like I was getting a one-on-one lesson, and meanwhile,
Yep.
I'm in my garage in Texas, and it's on my time at my convenience at a very low cost comparatively. And we're talking dry fire. Obviously, if I was out at the range, I don't think I'd have my laptop out, but you can do all the drills and you kind of talk about that. You talk about the drills
Mhm.
you do live fire versus dry fire. And just in like 2 days of me doing it, in 2 days of dry fire, I'm already starting to not have to adjust my grip coming up on target. My dot's where it's supposed to be. Not every time, but it's getting much, much better in just 2 days and just putting like a total of 45 minutes into dry fire. And it's
Yeah.
kind of incredible the difference I see already.
Well, it's time and continued effort. My thing that I always say to people is I'm excited to be a part of your progress, right? Yeah, I've done a lot. I've taught a lot of people. I try to help as many people as I can, but ultimately it's you that's putting in that work, right? I my intention is to give you guys as many tools and resources as possible so that you can become your own best coach too. Because I think when you can diagnose your own issues, you have the awareness to see things or feel things, right? The higher that level of awareness goes, the more effective our conversations go too. Because then your questions can become more targeted. And
Yeah.
now I can help you and guide you, continue to guide you forward better. Right? Does that make
You don't
sense?
know what you don't know what you don't know. So if you don't know what problems you're having, you don't know what questions to ask. And getting back to what you said earlier, there is definitely a bottleneck. Like there's only so many people you could have in a live fire course where people come show up. Even if you come to their area, there's going to be a cap on how many people you can actually help in one given day, one day given range session.
Something also to understand, and this is why the online lessons were so effective, and the accelerator is too. So there are a lot of people that post match videos, drill videos, dry fire videos, asking for my feedback, and I can take the time to look at it and actually give you all the feedback that I see. I always tell you what you're doing well first, because that is like most of us, we want to kick ourselves in the ass and make ourselves beat ourselves up like we have to be these like tough like it doesn't really work that way, right? So what's going well, why I think it's going well for you, and then we start to look at the areas of opportunity that we can start working and growing in a
Mm-hmm.
class. And this is part of the reason for this too. In a class, and I've been students in many classes, I'm not the guy that gets the attention, right? Like if you're one of the better shooters, you don't get as much attention typically as the other people.
Hmm.
So that can leave you just not getting as much. Now that doesn't mean that I haven't gotten good attention. There are great classes that I've attended, and I've always taken away a handful of things. But with something like this, you post on the forum and I answer you directly, right?
Yeah,
With
it's
I mean, if you look at something when you get a chance, you look at the forum and you look at some of the reviews, like there's a lot of information in that section. I sit there, I don't start to answer a review until I can sit down and actually watch it, which is usually the same day or a day after that you posted. Like I'll tell you if I can't make it right then. But I will tell you everything that I see.
mhm.
And the main things that like, hey, this is what you need to start focusing on. This is what you need to start training in order to get it. Right. There are a lot of cookie cutter drills, but my intention is to help you identify the 80-20 principle. Like the 80% of outputs determined by 20% of inputs, which is usually two or three main things. My job is to help you identify those and let you know, hey, this is how I think you should practice it so that now you can get the most return of investment on your training time. And that's what you're doing right now, in a sense, right? That's why you're seeing results quickly.
Yeah, I also want to point out that it's kind of like a social media platform in a way, right? It's a community where people, not only yourself, but anyone can kind of post and react and say, like, other people can post on it too, right? Like, can give
Everybody. I
feedback.
want
Yeah,
my intention is a couple of things. And there are group calls. There's weekly group calls for about an hour and a half where either myself or other high level special guests, other high level guys in the industry, high level shooters, we talk directly to each other. It's like a mastermind call, right?
yeah,
We meet and we, hey, listen, I'll ask, hey, does anybody have any questions? Does anybody want to share anything that's meaningful or insightful to them? And then if nobody has anything to say, I'll start talking to people. Just pick out people at random, right? Hey, how's this going? How are you having any issues? And that's when the questions usually come out, right? We all don't want to ask questions until someone calls us out, and then we have all the questions. And then usually someone else is like, oh, I'm glad they asked that and I didn't have to, right?
yeah,
But yeah, so we have that too. And my intention is that it's a growing platform where everybody helps each other. If you so you come in and you're like, hey, you see something in someone else's thing and you're like, hey, I want to share this knowledge that I learned. I encourage people to share and talk and give support and give feedback, right? Our intention is to celebrate the wins and the things that are going well without ignoring anything that needs to be identified in order to close the gap from where we are to where we want to be. Right. So it's meant to be highly interactive, and the community aspect is huge.
yeah. I can tell that already just from my limited time on there. And it's just really cool to have a framework and be able to go somewhere and be like, all right, where was I at? Where I leave off in this lesson plan? I can just go right there and start training right from where I left off. Even if I have a day or two that goes by where for whatever reason, can't get to the range or dry fire, I can go right back to where I left off, which is what I love about it. It really is like an online like course you would take in like a college course, right? It's like a very structured,
Mhm.
but it's also very authentic, very thorough, and it does start from like the ground, like grip. Like
Yep.
this is the different types of, it starts like no matter where you are in the journey, you can kind of hop right in and
Mhm.
then be like, okay, it's just a lot of good information. And it's a good listen. Even if I'm like working on the house, cleaning dishes up, I'm listening to part of it, right? Like the grip conversation, there wasn't a lot. I mean, there was some stuff I could have worked on right while I was listening to it, but I also just played it and just let it go and was working around the house too. Um, but let's take a step back away from the accelerated
Mhm.
program. And for people who
Sure.
are watching this video, obviously go check it out. There's a 7-day free trial. So it costs you absolutely nothing and see if you get anything out of it. I bet you will. But what are your most recommended like dry fire drills and then live fire drills? I think I know the answer to this because I've again been taking the courses, but for people who don't want to go over there right now or are thinking about it, could you give some people like where should you start and and go from there.
You know, honestly, kind of depends on the person, right? So if you look at the way it's set up based on what I would call a hierarchy of skills, right? So when you're shooting, right? In this case, it happens to be a stage in a match. What are the things we need the most, right? Shooting fundamentals first. You're shooting that many shots or more in a stage, right? After that, the gun handling skills for lower level shooters, right? Newer shooters, people who haven't competed yet. Typically speaking, their gun handling skills are not up to par in most cases, right? By gun handling, I mean draws and reloads. So we get into those. Once those are at a minimally acceptable standard, right? So for draws, 1 second at 7 yards, reloads, I 1 second is ideal, but 1.2 or 1.3 shot the shot at a 7 yard target with a high percentage of A zone hits, like that's what I'm looking for. After that, you can kind of bring those to maintenance and then focus on the visual side, visual speed, information processing, transitions, right? Transitions is one of the big time savers when it comes to separating the skill sets. So, and then you get into movement, shooting on the move, stage playing, a whole bunch of other stuff. The stuff that are going to start to take you into the deeper realms of where everything is. So, someone who's newer is going to spend their time in the fundamental section, right? If you haven't competed yet, you probably should spend some time looking at the shooting fundamentals, right? Grip, trigger, um, acclimation. Acclimation is a big one. Like if you're a newer shooter and you're having a problem with low left hits, or you're having a problem where you're pushing shots low often, the acclimation section is really the right section to be in. So there's an exercise in there called the 50-50 drill. That one is huge in terms of helping you identify the things that you're doing to try to control recoil and reducing or eliminating them. If you get to the point where you're able to not respond to recoil and let the bullet leave the barrel, your shots are going to go exactly where you want them to go. And that is super huge. Like that is an exercise I use with new shooters all the time. In terms of good dry fire drills that kind of work on that skill, there's an exercise called trigger control at speed. So essentially, on a beep, your goal is to press the trigger as quickly as you can, and harder and faster each time you don't see any movement. So most of us, whether we're shooting for defensive reasons or we're shooting competition, under stress, we're typically going to press the trigger harder than we think. So in the beginning, sure, you might learn how to press this trigger very gently, right? Your typical dry fire. Hey, put the piece of brass or put the coin or whatever on top of the thing and don't have it move on top of the thing, on top of the gun, right? So, so yeah, okay, yeah, just press gently, 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 right? Well, once you understand how to do that and not have any movement, you can throw that away because that's just not going to do you any good. Because when you're actually under a stressful encounter, whether that is, God forbid, a gunfight, right, in real life, or hey, I'm about to shoot a stage 4 score performance on demand with everybody watching me, which typically is actually more anxious. It makes you more anxious, right? The performance
Yeah.
anxiety aspect of it. I've done a lot of force on force. Like in force on force, I'm very like, because it's happened so fast, you don't get the same level of performance anxiety. In a match, I'll get more anxiety waiting to go up on a stage, right?
Hmm.
So when you, regardless of what you're doing, when you're performing under pressure, you're pressing that trigger a lot harder than you think. So learning how to press the trigger aggressively without disturbing the gun, like any sort of ticks, low left, low right, like that's going to help tremendously. And then the
Real
50,
quick
yeah,
before I forget, so I want you to, after I say this, because I have massive ADHD, but I want you to explain the 50 sorry, 50-50 drill for those who don't know what it is. But I would just categorize myself in the acclimation portion because that is something that I've never really put thought or real energy or real effort into. Like the sewing machine, that's kind of where I'm at in the accelerator.
that's
The
one I would
sewing
recommend
machine
too.
drill where you're just like starting off slow and then accelerating faster and faster as you start to get acclimated to that recoil and get comfortable with it and
Mhm.
understand it. So that's kind of where I'd categorize myself. But I want to just go back to what you said about the coin in the front sight. That whole theory of like the gun should surprise you when it goes off. Essentially, like you're not anticipating. I get the idea behind it, right? You're not
Yep.
anticipating the recoil, so you're not throwing it low left. But when I was training that for a long time, and I also wanted to ask your opinion on like releasing the trigger to the wall. It, I just don't see that as being, that's what I was training for the longest time.
Mhm.
That's what I was recommending to
I did
people.
that
Like
too.
work the wall, understand the wall, right? Know where your trigger's going to break, and then just release the wall. But every time I'm shooting, especially for time, like you said, when there's pressure, and especially with what I do, even if there's not an audience, there's a camera, and so there's
Mhm.
always this anxiety of like, okay, I got the camera rolling. I need to get this looking good, otherwise I'm gonna get roasted in the comments. But I'm one of the rare people, I think, reviewers at least, that shows all my hits and all my misses, and there's a ton of misses. And there's some really embarrassing misses that I've shown on camera. I'm like, you know what? People need to know as much as I shoot, I still have a long way to improve. But again, I just wanted to kind of give people an example of like, I've been shooting for 10 years, really trying to improve for like the last 2 years. Like I didn't have a shot timer until 2 years ago, believe it or not.
Okay.
Shot timer is really important. You can't improve on what you can't measure. So but yeah, getting back to the 50-50 drill, that's a great one because most people don't have the luxury of shooting at, having their own piece of land or having outdoor ranges they can go to where they can draw from a holster and do all this different type of stuff.
Mhm.
Or there's like rates of fire rules,
Yep.
right? That's one of the things with the 50-50 drill. So could you explain that real quick?
Sure. And that's actually one of my recent YouTube videos about what I would do if I were shooting an indoor range, single bay indoor range. So the 50-50 drill. For one, acclimation is what are you doing to try to control the gun or stop recoil from happening, identifying that and reducing that response to nothing, right? You hold the gun as you hold the gun's going to go up, it's going to come back down. You can't stop that, right? You can't stop the gun from rising. So as long as we hold still long enough for the bullet to leave the barrel, which is actually before recoil is even felt, that means that like the bullet will go where it's intended to go. So 50-50 exercise is this. Simplest version of it. There's 4 versions that I talk about in the program, but the simplest version is this. Load the gun, take the mag out, okay? You have 1 round in the chamber. Aim on target and try to fire 2 shots. You're going to get a bang and a click, right? Try to fire 2 shots at the pace that you see it, right? When you think you would be able to fire again, try to fire again. Bang, click. Your purpose for this exercise is to intently observe what happens when you get the click and work to reduce or eliminate it. Ideally, I eliminate it. And this exercise is tremendously effective in getting you to become aware of what's happening when you think the gun's going to go off, but it doesn't. And as you reduce and or eliminate that movement, that response, you're going to see that your shots are typically going to start to rise up, and they're going to get much tighter, right? They're going to start to the group is going to shrink, and it's going to center up more where you'd expect it to be, right?
So it's essentially a test. It's essentially a test of your trigger control or your reaction to the recoil, because ideally you don't
Reaction.
want to react to the
It's
recoil. Because
not it's not really trigger control. So interesting thing, right? The most common thing, low left, right? And that's usually caused because as you're
guilty.
about to fire, huh? You're
I,
left-handed?
I no, I said guilty. I'm
Yeah,
guilty of that.
yeah.
Yes,
We all
very
we all
guilty
have
of
been
this.
there. Every single shooter that ever shot handguns has been there, right? The problem is this: when you're about to shoot, you think the shot's going to go off now, and that's what you do, right? It's a response to what you think is about to happen. It's funny because I actually like when I talk about firing hand. Everybody says it's the firing hand, which it is, right? But the most common thing that people say is to relax the firing hand, right? And if you could relax the firing hand all the way, it works really well. However, that's not so easy for everybody. So in a lot of cases, I'll actually tell people to tighten their firing hand, and specifically tighten their firing hand at the last 2 fingers, because I've learned that the increase in or decrease in pressure during firing is what causes that. So as long as the person shooting feels mentally comfortable that the gun is not going to move around on them, they don't do as much to try to stop recoil, and they just let it happen. So for me, I actually grip
Yeah.
the gun a little bit on the tighter side, right? And it's these 2 fingers for me that do it, the ring and pinky finger. And for if people see this video, that they could try this at home, right? If I move my pinky finger, my index finger doesn't move much. If I move my ring finger, it still doesn't move much. But once I start moving my middle finger, I can't really stop that. I'm trying really hard, right? So it's specifically this finger, the middle finger, that tightening during firing is what causes a lot of that movement, which is interesting to hear.
Yeah, I'm sitting over here when I'm off camera doing the same thing. I'm like, wait a minute,
Everybody's going to be
like
doing it at home. I bet
my
you.
my index finger is moving the entire time, even with my pinkies. It's
Yeah.
just like
And you
I just need to
listen,
get used to it.
you can also train that too. So I have this thing, it's called the grip keeper. This is one version. They have a bunch of different ones. You can literally practice this where I hold this closed and I work on moving my finger.
Yeah, I was gonna say that
That's a
that
good exercise.
feeling, like where I'm at in my shooting progress, like I'm trying to consciously just tighten the bottom two fingers, and it's you know what I compare this to, and you may think this is a terrible comparison, but I used to golf. I don't really golf anymore, but when I used to golf, I used to have a lot of people tell me like 15 things to work on at once in my golf swing, and it would just completely shut me down.
Yep.
I'd be like, all right, keep the elbow tucked, slow backswing, follow through with the wrist. And I'm like, I just need to work on one thing at a time. That's something
Yes.
I found really helped me. So
Hmm.
like, I'm not really focusing on this quite yet. I'm more focusing on the other stuff, like the more basic level stuff, because I don't think I'm there yet. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
You want the simplest solution to left hits.
Tell me, aim right.
No, without using the
That's how I corrected my
without
slice.
using
I
the
would just aim
handicap
further
driver,
to the
right?
left. Yeah, yeah. I would just
I
aim
had
further
one
to
of
the
those.
left and just slice it on.
I had the correct the offset driver, right, to
Yeah.
correct slicing. Um, so this is what I tell people. This is a band-aid. This is not the actual fix because the actual symptom is the firing hand. Tighten your support hand. Rotate your support elbow. Right. So here, tighten the left hand if you're a right-handed shooter. Rotate the support elbow a little bit. That almost instantly fixes it. Why? Why do you think that is?
You're asking me. I have
I am
no
asking
idea.
you.
Is it the torque of the elbow?
Which is doing what?
Um, I guess pushing it getting your grip better on the gun.
It's giving you resistance. So this hand wants to do this, right? This little bit of extra is making it harder for it to disturb it.
So it's not fixing the issue. It's just
It's a band-aid.
correcting on the other side of
It'll
the gun.
it'll it'll help you in the moment,
You know what I
right?
found today? And you talk about shooting and training with dry chalk. And during my competitions, I do use dry chalk, but
Mhm.
lately I haven't been using it in a hot Texas garage. And like today, I mean, by the time I was done with my dry fire session, it's like a complete workout. I'm like dripping sweat.
Oh
Now,
yeah.
granted, it's like 85 degrees in the garage, but like my support hand, as I'm trying to grip the gun tight, and it just keeps slipping off the front of my shooting hand. So
Yeah.
that's a clear, I guess, case for dry chalk there.
I would say so. And for me, when I talk about using chalk or any sort of grip enhancer, I don't use it all the time, right? I'll use it if I'm competing, since largely I would be competing with chalk. I would spend about 80 to 90% of my time with chalk on, but I would also know what it's like to not have it either. I've learned that in the past when it was a really, really rainy day, because that
Yeah,
chalk then turns into mush, and that mush ends up making things worse. So
yeah.
I learned how to use both, right? So being for you, like applying it to some degree when you can, right? Like that's especially when you're dry fire training, like applying it periodically would be helpful.
Well, I feel like removing some of the variables, like I already
Yeah,
have enough to work on. So
yes,
like I don't need to
don't gonna
add
make it
the
worse.
added variable of like sweaty hands. But largely what I train for, because I've never shot a USPSA match. I've never shot a IDPA match. I don't even know what I barely know what USPSA is. I don't even know what IDPA is. I've shot an ASI match, I think it was called.
Okay,
I've shot a couple of Riddle of Steel matches, which I really love shooting steel. And I just hate pasting targets, if I'm being completely honest, because
I don't
again, the
blame you.
amount of rounds I shoot, I hate pasting targets. So I'm like, maybe I could just buy some A zone, like literal USPSA target A zone size steels,
You
and
can.
then if I miss, but then when you're really pushing it, you kind of want to see where you're missing, right? Versus
I
not
would
knowing at all.
I would do something more along the lines of an AC zone. just you'll have a little bit more of that. I think an issue that a lot of people have, especially coming from the defensive tactical law enforcement world, coming into competition shooting, and this applies, this applies in real life too, right? We
Hmm.
penalize heavily any inaccuracy in any exercise, which makes people afraid to miss. Now, if you're afraid to miss in training, you'll never grow to the level that your potential would allow you to grow to, because you have to miss and you have to get hits that are not ideal, and you have to solve the problem at the speed that it's happening in order to surpass that level. So by restricting only to A zone hits, any miss is death. That's what they say in a lot of these classes, right? Yes, sure, I understand that, but you have to separate the context of training and growth with execution and performance, right? Training and growth, you need to make a lot of mistakes. You want to fail as fast as you possibly can so that you can succeed when it matters, right? So, and I have a lot of law enforcement that I train. There's a lot of law enforcement instructors in my programs. So you hear this all the time, and and a lot of them come in and they're just afraid. And then once you start allowing them to, hey, listen, you can, I want you to fail. Like I want you not in a productive way. I want you to make mistakes, and I want you to fail so I can teach you how to be better and build it stronger, right? But training mode, we have to make mistakes, we have to learn and grow from them. Performance and execution mode, that's when we're performing on demand with the best process that we have. We want to identify what process gets us the best results or the best potential results in comparison to our skill level, and then we rely on that and trust on that. That's the only thing
Hmm.
that matters at that point, right? And
So,
if
so
go ahead.
I was gonna say, so I've heard this phrase or this mindset used before. Like when you're training 100, 110%. You're going as fast as possible to failure and just over, because otherwise you don't know what your capabilities are. But when you go to shoot a match, maybe you dial it back to 90%, or do you still go 100%, or do you think there shouldn't be a distinction? It should just be you just train 110%, and then you just get better as you train 110%, and then you go into the match at 110, and because that training.
There is a distinction, right? I think in training you always have to be stretching your limits, whatever that is. You have to define success a little differently, maybe to get so a little bit more out of it. You need to learn from all the mistakes, and you need to understand what gets you your best performance. I do think there also is an execution, or a, what would I call it, the performance mindset within that. So there is some of that training where you're, hey, this is, I'm doing this as if it were for real, right? There's a portion of your training that you should be doing that with, because you need to understand what the results are and what potential common themes you need to address it in general in training, right? In the practice mindset, like this is where we're looking at all everything, our mistakes. We're pushing our limit all the time. It should be so. I remember, I forget what book it was from, but 4% was the ideal amount of stretch, because 4% you could still agree to, but it's not so far out of your ability that you get super tense or uncomfortable with it. If you goes too far outside, also you're just not going to believe it, right?
When you when you
You feel like you're lying to yourself.
when you say 4%, what do you mean by that? Like train it like a
104%.
104%, and
Yeah,
then
slightly uncomfortable is what is. So if you define it by a feeling, it's tough to quantify, right? Even
yeah.
though I'm an engineer. um, I define it as I can mentally agree to it, but it makes me feel uncomfortable, right? And when you do that enough times, that whole thing, maybe that's, whatever, it's a little past 100% for you, but that whole thing starts to shift as you go. And then when you're continuing to perform on an execution based method at some point in your practice, let's say it's half the time it's execution based, half the time it's development, right? Practice or training, making mistakes, growing from them, stretching the edge all the time. The percentage varies, but when you combine those together, you doing that execution based training also, it's going to teach you what process works. You should be writing down what is going well and why you think it's going well. Because if you don't learn to become an expert in your best performance, you're not going to get more of it. Right. And then when you're in uncertain circumstances, right? Pressure situations, God forbid a gunfight, that kind of stuff, right? You know what you have to fall back on in order to get your best potential, right? I don't have to be certain about the outcome to know that this is my best chance. And that's all I do, no more, no less. The results don't matter at that point. You are just executing to what will get you the best potential performance, right?
Now,
You should be studying that. You should be documenting that, right? I
now,
do it every stage I shoot, huh?
what does that look like in actuality? Like when you say slightly uncomfortable, what is the failure point? Is it like is it a mic or is it a del? Is it just yeah? That's my question. So when I go to the
For you it
range,
might be so a true a failure point is starting to lose points, right? Too many Charlies, let's say, deltas, misses, but you're aware of all of it.
so you're
I
aware that you threw one low
Mhm.
left because you anticipate
Yep.
or whatever it is. You just got to be
Yep.
hyper aware.
Once you get outside of your level to be aware, you lose the ability to diagnose and correct problems.
So push it 104%, and that's exactly what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to take this and go to the
You
range
should.
and be like, okay, I want to know how fast I can shoot this XYZ, whatever, insert drill here. And then I'm going to go, I don't know, do you start like with a comfortable pace or do you start balls to the wall? Do you have a
Uh,
warm up?
I would always treat the first run as an execution run. Just where you're currently at. It depends on obviously what you're doing. You in particular would like this exercise, and everybody listening would like this exercise. If you guys know what a metronome is, it's a musical timing device, and it makes a tick or a beat based upon the beats per minute that it's set at. Okay, set up. Well, you could do this on a single target first, just for recoil control, shooting speed, but it works really well when it comes to 2 or 3 targets, right? Or more. I've used tons of targets doing this. 150 to 180 is a good starting point. 240 is a good standard, right? 240 beats per minute equates to 1 shot per quarter second. And then you go up. So, like, I demonstrate this in classes. So, my working level, my challenge level at, like we would be talking about right here, that's edge stretch is about 360, 360, 380, which is about 17 hundredths of a second per shot and transition. So, let's say you put up 3 targets, boom, right? Full size targets, start at 150, go back and forth. Every time the beat goes off, you have to shoot. You're pressing the trigger. Bang, bang. And you have to figure out how to move from target to target accurately while keeping your finger to the beat, right? Now
Do you use an
you can
app for this or?
so I use Metronome Beats, but if you type in Metronome app in iPhone or Play Store, it's you'll get plenty of options. You just pick one that you like. I yeah, so that one you talk about stretching your ability. There's going to be a point where you're like, I don't know if I could do this, right? And then you try to do it, and you may not get the best results, but you can see it. If you could see it on the next pass, you can work to correct it. If you can't see it, now you're going way too far outside of your ability, and all you're doing is junk.
Mhm.
And at
You're
that point,
wasting
if you're
ammo.
doing junk, you're not helping yourself. So I train with Ace Virtual Shooting now, also as my main dry fire tool. And that is the perfect place you can experiment with a lot of these concepts too. Right. You can start
Mhm.
pushing that limit of speed, not so far that you can't be aware of it. Because if you're not careful, you just end up trying to go faster and faster. You see less and less. And when you're getting to that point, you're actually counterproductive in your training. You're making it worse
Mhm.
because you don't know what's going on. You need to be able to be aware of everything, correct it. Like, but this metronome thing, like, it's I tell you, you try it. So it's in the classroom too, right? We
Okay.
talk about it a lot, but you try it, and it's gonna be very very interesting to you. But it is gonna build your ability to do transitions and move the gun around quicker by a mile. Like, it works really well for dry fire too. Quite honestly.
So I have the range I go to is at my buddy's ranch. We have three targets set up in the T-Rex arm style, where it's I think it's 10 meters apart each one. So that would be a good place to start, maybe. Where I know it's a kind of a long swing. I don't know how
That's a long swing. So for this, a good
we can
starting
move
point
them.
you
Yeah.
know, listen, a distance. So 10 yards, a yard apart, right? I would come in from that because the closer you are, the more swing there is, but also the target is a little more forgiving as you start to challenge your speed, right? I've
Okay.
done
So
it
like 7 yards. Is that like a good
7 yards,
starting place?
7 yards with a yard between each target is how I usually demonstrate it.
Okay.
And it's usually somewhat achievable by people at 180, 240. People start to fall apart, and then that's usually as far as we get in a class.
Okay.
Most people are not, because 240. Think about this: if I'm pressing the trigger at 240 beats per minute, that is one shot per quarter second. So now you have that's fine on one target, maybe, right? Most people are capable of shooting quarter of a second per shot on one target. But once you add a second target, I have to figure out how to get to the next target quicker without disrupting that beat, that pattern. Right.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of people, if you can shoot quarter second per shot and then transition from one target to another one that's a yard away in a quarter second, you're shooting at a high level.
Okay. Challenge accepted. Now, but that's
Yes.
all A zone. A zone is the standard, right? So
A high percentage of A zone hits,
like 80%.
90. I'd want 90 or more.
No.
That's
So
just me.
and then how like do you just go 1 2 1 2 1 2 and
Mhm.
drill analyze, or do you just
Whole
go back
mag.
and forth?
Go through a whole mag.
So 17
Because
rounds on a Glock
so
17.
so in dry fire, this is so anybody listening, you set up whatever it is you want to see. It doesn't the array doesn't matter. Easier targets closer to you and closer together are easier. More difficult targets, pieces of steel further away, that makes it harder, right? Movement makes it harder. Faster beats per minute makes it harder. You'll know when you're doing it pretty well when you find that you're moving back and forth from target to target with relatively little effort. You'll know when you're pushing yourself because your body starts to want to tense up to get target to target. Like you're gonna start to feel when you're pushing it. In dry fire, a string set apart time for 5 to 10 seconds, and that whatever you decide you're gonna do, you do that for 5 or 10 seconds. The reason why is because every time you go back and forth from the target, as long as you're being aware, you're going to say, oh, that wasn't in the A zone. And then when you come back to that target, now you can correct it and make it in the A zone. It's fast feedback loops. It's a long enough string that you can make corrections mid-string. The shorter the feedback loop from recognizing the issue to applying the solution, the quicker the learning generally occurs.
Okay. And let's say I get really good at doing 7 yards, three targets. You said what was a standard for beats per like 180
240.
beats per minute?
240
240
is
is
the
like you're
minimum.
shooting at a high level. Okay. Then from there you can either change the distance, you
I would
can
speed it up. I would go
speed it up.
faster.
So before you start incorporating other things, you recommend just speeding up the beats per minute, really mastering that.
It's making it harder is a function of several variables. Like I said, you could make you could spread it. Instead of 1 yard, you can go two, right? You can also make it an full open target or a partial target with like something like a no shoot.
Yeah, shoot, no shoot. I know what you're saying.
Yeah. So you could do that. You can also do it 240 on the move, left to right, right to left. That's going to add another factor of challenge to it, right?
Yeah.
So it's either all of those are available options, right? It's what option do you want to try? Really, what option interests you? Like, you tell me, what would you want to do? What would seem the most challenging to you, like in a fun way?
Well, for me, I try to take into account like the scenario, right? I'm not a USPSA shooter
Mhm.
yet. I think I'm going to start trying to get into that a little. We'll maybe talk about that and the realistic application of a match like that. But for me personally, I carry a gun every single day, everywhere I go,
Mhm.
and typically targets aren't stagnant. But on a flat range, they are. So how can I make things harder? And I'm not going to be stagnant in a gunfight either. So I feel like
Shooting on the
once I,
move,
yeah, shooting on the move, but that's why I wanted to know like what standard should I get to before I start moving,
quarter second per shot.
which is 240.
Yep, 240, 240
Okay.
beats. So
So I'm sure that's going to be difficult enough to get to that. I'm sure I'll have a
yeah,
lot of training just to get to that point, and then I can start to incorporate because I want to crawl before I walk and run, right?
I would add movement to it, and you could start off a draw too. Like you don't have to. You would time it to the beat, but you can draw the gun from concealment as the start versus having it out or having it pointed on target already.
Okay,
There's a bunch of different
nice.
bunch of different ways to do that, but in the context of what you're talking about, that would be that would be a good challenge, and the goal would be that you can do that without needing the metronome on demand when you're doing your execution based runs.
Yeah, I like that.
Mhm.
Real quick on a different tip,
Sure.
what do you carry every day? Do you? I know that you live in New York, so it's
So New York is a bit of a pain in the ass, right? When
yeah.
when when they struck down in the Supreme Court the concealed carry law, New York basically made it illegal to almost carry anywhere in the sense of like they're all sensitive locations. So that's in the process of being worked through right now. So I can carry whenever I don't go to those places. Yes, I carry. I carry a 320X, 320X, 365X. That's what I'm doing.
Okay, X macro.
Not a macro, just an X.
Okay, I was gonna say if you're carrying a P320,
I know. I was thinking about, like I
yeah.
said, well, yeah.
Well,
Never
I,
mind.
I
Never mind the issues the challenges they're going through.
yeah, I feel like a lot of it's self-inflicted, but also I'd be lying to you if I didn't like second guess the other Sig like Sig rifles, cool, whatever.
Mhm.
I love my Sig Spears, but when you're carrying appendix, I mean, I still question that 365X macro. I'm like, man, I just feel more
Yeah.
comfortable with my Glocks. I don't know. That's like
Yeah.
a,
I mean, for me,
but
for me, it's
also I
okay.
have like
It's okay.
the most rounds through my Glocks by
Yep.
far. So I'm just the most comfortable with them.
And the intention behind that choice also was because I run. I'm running less now because I'm working with a triathlon coach, but I was running 6 days a week up until 2 weeks ago. So the intention is that, listen, if I'm going to run, like I could be able to carry a gun, and people are not going to be able to notice that I'm carrying a gun when I run. So
Yeah, absolutely.
that's especially I'm in much thinner, lighter clothing, so it has to be able to be concealed well,
Yeah.
especially in that,
Interesting.
that
So,
situation.
what are you using? Are you wearing a belt when you run, or do you have some sort of
So I
other?
picked up the leisure carry biothane like insert, and
Okay,
that works pretty well.
I don't think I'm familiar with that. Is it like a hard band that has the
Mhm.
ulti clips
It
on it?
goes in the
Okay,
front. Yep, it has the Ulti
okay,
clips. It clips in nice. It holds pretty nice. I'm using a TXC covert
yeah, I
holster.
love those holsters. That's
They're
what I'm
good.
running as well. Yeah,
TXC is great people, great dudes, awesome service. Like can't ask for much more.
yeah.
So
I've been running there over recently, but they sent me the covert
yep.
a while ago for the
Mhm,
17, and I really like that holster. It's just got a lot of stuff built into it that
mhm,
you have to usually add to other holsters. Like this is the holster, the Tier One concealed. I got nothing bad to say about it because it can fit literally any gun you put in. It's an MSP, so it indexes on the light. And so I wore this for like 3 years straight.
nice.
But you have to add the wedge to it. It's got a wing which kind of gets in the way of your draw hand a little bit, makes it a
Sure.
smaller area for you to get your draw hand in there. But I love it because again, I review a bunch of different guns, and if I want to switch it up on the EDC, I could just put the Streamlight on here and it would work.
Mhm,
So I don't have anything bad to say about this. It's kind of a one size fits all. But as far as like a dedicated holster, the
yeah.
TXC is definitely my new favorite. They
Yep.
did send those to me for full disclosure, but I don't have any financial incentive to push them or talk about
Same.
them. I don't get any affiliates or anything like that with those guys. But I just like their stuff,
I
and it
don't.
works.
Well, and like, I mean, you're this way too, but I don't like I don't like shilling for anybody.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
you're
It's the
I,
worst thing you can be called as a gun reviewer is a shill.
sure,
It's literally
sure,
the
but
death sentence.
like if I believe in your product, I will promote it. Whether whatever you do. Like, yeah, people send me stuff now, which is awesome.
Hmm.
But that I won't promote any of it unless I believe in it.
Yeah, and
you
I had to
know?
take it a step further. I had to turn down a ton of stuff because people
Yeah,
were just like, "Send me this." Hey, we're going to send you that. We're going to send you this. And early on, I was like, "Cool, I'll take whatever and I'll try it
mhm,
out." And it's like, dude, I don't have enough time in the day to actually review and like put the time and energy and the resources behind what it takes to do a review on my channel. In my opinion, some other reviewers are just like, "Hey, got this thing in the mail. Check it out. It's great." And it's like
yeah,
clearly an infomercial. And again, people still call me a shill for the products I do like and talk about. But it's like, dude, if I'm talking about Arkin or Holosun, it's because I have a bunch of different
yep.
platforms and I can't afford to put an RMR HD on every single one. Like it's just a
The
simple.
Hollow Suns are solid, man, you know?
Yeah, I mean they're about to be more expensive than the Trijicon stuff
I
with
mean,
the
you know,
tariffs, but
my preference after using a couple of different platforms, um, for the Defender XL, the Defender series seems to be the one that I agree with most. And yes, again, they send me stuff too, but I had Hollow Suns also. I had them on my guns, and I do the same thing. Hey, I will try it out. If it works great, I'll keep using it. I'll tell people about it. If it
yep.
doesn't, I'm going to give you feedback, and I'm not going to use it. Like
Yeah,
that's
and I'm
it.
not going to bring it on my platform either. People are like, you don't have any negative reviews. It's like, dude, because if it's that bad,
Yeah,
I'm not even going to spend the time. If it's unsafe, then I might be like, okay, this needs to be talked about a little bit.
right.
But luckily, I've never had that, and after the last thing I had sent to me that I wasn't actively shopping for. That's the thing. Like people don't realize this. Like I'll be looking for something that I actually want to try that I've heard good things about that my friends or people that I
Mhm.
respect in the industry have used. And I'll reach out to those companies and just shoot my shot because, again, limited budget and see if they'll be willing to send it out. But I am not accepting any more products from random clone companies or anything that I wouldn't spend my own money on. I'm not even taking it. And then, even then, there's still some negatives to a lot of things I want to buy or I'm interested in buying and that people send me. And I talk about those things. But it does feel like sometimes, yeah, it feels like, I'm fighting the good fight and giving my honest opinion, and a lot of other reviewers aren't. So that gets a little frustrating at times because then they'll get a lot more engagement and it's like, I'm not chasing this engagement. I do this because I love it and I want to help people. And I just got to remember that that's the foundation of what I'm doing. That's the reason I'm doing it.
People are good bullshit detectors, right? If you're not being authentic, yeah, you might be able to get away with it for a little while.
Yeah,
But over time, people will start to see through you, you know? So
100%.
it always pays to be genuine, honest, helpful. Even if it means in the short term you don't get the same clout or the same view count because that path is a longer path. Like the path of being honest and genuine and living the truths, like it's a longer path, but it's a much more fulfilling path that returns much more later on. You know, so that's where you're at. You know, people see you're honest, you're genuine. They're going to want to help you. They're going to want to bring people to you. It just takes a little bit more time because you have to hold up to your standards and values, whereas others may not necessarily do that.
Yeah, and I'll throw myself under the bus here. For a long time, I met somebody who gave me this piece of advice and I was chasing the clicks and I was doing clickbaity stuff. And that
Yep.
when I look back and even the videos that weren't like clickbait per se, I look back at some of my earlier videos like we were talking about and watch myself shooting. And even though I'm still not at a super high level, like I'm like, man, that was so cringy. And I hate that they're even still up. But we all started somewhere. And again, like at the end of the day, I want to make something I'm proud of. I want to make something that I want to be able to show to my family and I want the respect of people in the industry who are the guys I look up to. Like, those are the guys I want their respect. I'm not looking for just like again, I want guys like yourself or like the OTG guys to be like,
Mhm.
dude, this Range J bro is putting out some good shit. Look how far he's come or whatever. That's kind of like I listen to Rogan a lot. And he talks about like you want to please the other comedians. You want to make jokes that the other comedians find funny. I want to make content that real shooters, like
Yeah.
real high level shooters, actually look at and are like, that's good shit. You know what I mean? And that's what I try to do. I don't know. It
It's
seems like
about
a very thankless job sometimes.
well, you got to think about it this way. What are you doing it for? You know, you're doing if you're doing it to help if you're doing it you give without expectation of return, right? And the hope is that as you learn how to give to the right people, that those people are naturally wanting to give back and they'll give back much more. So if you feel thankless at some point, sometime you feel like you're getting taken advantage of, like that's part of the giving
Yeah, that's how I feel about my
path of
relationship
progress.
with my relationship with YouTube. 100%. I'm like,
Sure.
yeah, I got this plaque back here, and I'm like, man, I'm gonna do it at some point. I'm gonna just do some groups on it because I think it would look cool. But I wanted to like blow it up, like put some tannerite on it and blow it up at one point because just to upload one video, I have to like go through this whole process. It takes like days or weeks sometimes in order to try to get a video monetized, and then that's a whole another topic for another day. I will say
Oh yeah.
that, but no, I mean, I love my viewers. I think most of them are enjoy what I'm doing, and I'm like, those are the people I'm doing it for. So, and hopefully, by bringing guys like yourself on, I'm sharing some more knowledge about shooting at a level that's much higher than my own level, and that's why, thankfully, I have the platform and I could bring guys like yourself on. So,
Oh yeah. Listen,
appreciate you
man,
being
like
here.
I appreciate you having me on here too. It's a good opportunity just to be able to reach more people. Like one of the things, so I have like 5 or 6 open-ended affirmations, and it's like I read them every day, and the one that I'm referencing right now is I'm serving others by teaching them how to have great success and abundance in their lives. Like being able to reach out and just share knowledge and wisdom, and having someone like you who's made it their mission to be able to reach more people to share with them too. That's what it's all about. It's all about helping everybody meet and exceed their perceived potential, because we all think our potential's here, but everybody, you listen to enough people, you study enough people, our potential is much further than we think. And our intention, my intention, at least with students, is to help them see that they're capable of much more than they think, and bring that out in them. Let them believe it, right? Because someone else believes in you before you truly believe in yourself, and that is tremendously helpful.
Yeah, that's why I think it's so important to surround yourself with just good people who are better than you in some way, right? Like not that
Mhm.
you're always just taking and taking, but like if you surround yourself with people who are successful or like pushing themselves constantly, you tend to kind of rise to the occasion, is what I find. And if you're hanging out with losers all the time, you're going to be a loser too, kind of,
Well, no,
for
it's
lack
it's
of a better
it's true,
term.
man. It's true. Who you spend the most time around, that's going to make a big difference. If you're the biggest fish in the room, you need to find a bigger room. If you want to continue your path of personal development, you have to. It's not that you're taking from anybody else. You're trying to raise yourself up. So part of helping other people become better versions of themselves is you have to become a better version of yourself. You can't give what you don't have, right? If you
Yeah.
don't if so dude, I'm a quote library. I've studied a lot of high performers in general, right? So like something, this is Jim Rohn, the business guy, because I study a lot of business people, high level business people at this point. But he said, work harder on yourself than you're doing your job. If you work hard on your job, you can make a living. But if you work hard on yourself, you can make a legacy. Something along the line. That second part is, I'm paraphrasing to some degree, but the concept is the same, right? Grow yourself, and everything else will start to fall in place. And now you can help more people. And then you learn from people who are a little bit further than you. And now you become that next person. And then you help the next person. Like it's just a cascading chain of positive events where you start making difference in everybody's lives. So it's
Dude, I
it's
love it. That's some real shit right there. I gotta say. But you know what? It doesn't get talked about enough. I don't think so. I appreciate you, living it, and I'm doing my best. Like I'll be the first to admit I'm a very far from perfect person, but try every day just to be better than I was yesterday. That's all I try to do. So, which is all
one
we can do. Just you
one
versus
percent.
you. Yeah, it's you versus you.
If you ever read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, he talks about the French cycling team, and the way that they brought themselves to a national championship was by literally trying to do 1% better every day. That's it. If you're a little better every day goes a long way.
Yeah, the journey of 1,000 steps begins, or 1,000 miles begins
First,
with one step. Yeah.
one step, one step, one
So
step
I
repeated for
love that
God
quote.
knows how long.
Yeah, exactly. But it could it's real because it could be a daunting task, especially for new shooters. I mean, I think the vast majority of Americans fall into the cat. We've all lived it, right? We all can remember we got our first gun. For me, that was like a several year gap where I didn't have a holster. I went and shot it once or twice a year,
Mhm.
usually in a buddy's backyard at some beer cans. And, I think a lot of, gun owners in America fall within this like obscure area where they have a gun, they don't ever shoot it, they don't train with it. And so I think it could seem pretty daunting to take that first step. But the matches are really cool because everyone's really cool. And let's before we wrap this video up, could we talk about USPSA, because this is something I brought up to you on the
Sure.
phone, and you had a really good point. It seems like it's very daunting to me specifically. Stage planning.
Mhm.
I'm kind of okay at shooting where where I'm afraid of going to one of these matches and kind of having a brain fart in the middle of the match. Is like there's so many targets, there's so many positions you could shoot these targets from. How do you, I guess, talk about USP? Can you summarize like what the idea is behind it? Is it practical for self defense encounters, and then also like how do you start? How do you get into it? I guess.
So anybody I've trained with who's blended the two lines together between competition shooting and real life gunfight stuff, like they've all said competition shooting made them better. Why? So let's take USPSA. USPSA is what's called freestyle. You're given a stage, a problem, so to speak, and it's up to you to solve it in the best way that you know how, given your skill set and given what you see. Okay. What I tell people now, there's all the information of the stages in a piece of paper, and that's something you guys can pay attention to. It'll tell you the round count. It'll tell you how many paper targets, how many steel targets, where you start, is the gun loaded or unloaded, so on and so forth. Right? I tell you a lot of these things. People who are new, you're going to create the simplest version of your stage plan that makes you feel that you can execute it without hesitation. Do not worry. Don't worry about trying to copy somebody else, who's better. I would be aware of them and observe them, but if you're a new shooter, do what you know how to do, no more, no less. Because that's where most people get messed up is they try to copy someone else and they don't know how to prepare for a stage properly. So all they end up doing is just kind of floundering around, right? So another thing that's important is from this perspective, at least from a rehearsal perspective, visualize the stages if you're shooting it in first person and try to do that at least 10 times if you can, right? Because that'll start to bring the odds of your success of execution to your ability to up. Third thing, everybody started where you were, and there are going to be more more people that started where you currently are. So and also just remember this, like nobody cares, right? The higher level shooters, the highest level shooters, they're typically going to be willing to help you. If you ask questions, they'll help you. If you make a mistake, they're not going to make you feel bad because they've been there too. I've been there too. Everything that you guys have done, I have probably done at some point myself. Now, as you start to get better, here's a good interesting thing. Most of your law enforcement, even your SWAT officers, most of them will start in the bottom 40% in the classification system when it comes to competitive shooting. So even if they're not performing to the best of their ability, right? That's okay if you don't. The progress is going to happen. Now, as the progress happens, you learn to build your skills in a subconscious way so you can call upon them without having to think about them. You're also practicing operating under pressure, under stress with free thinking, right? A free thinking plan that you've come up with for yourself. Even if you rehearse it, like even if you see it beforehand, you still have to be able to execute this on demand under pressure. As your shooting gets better, as your subconscious ability improves, as you start to be able to handle those little things that happen and fix them quickly without hesitation, that is going to translate into everything that you do. Okay. You get into an altercation, a gunfight, right? God forbid. Really, your bandwidth to process information and make decisions is going to increase because you're used to doing it under stress and you're used to doing it to a high level. So what does that do for your ability to process that information? I notice it when I'm driving, right? I process information much faster now as a result of my competitive shooting, just because I've practiced this for so long at this point. You notice it everywhere. So it ends up giving you this additional bandwidth to be able to just make better decisions. And that translates into a lot of better things. A lot of people who are or have been law enforcement and high level competitors will tell you this same exact thing. Competing has helped them become a better law enforcement officer and make better decisions in the field.
I agree with most of what you've said, or actually all of what you've said, because in my own experience, not with USPSA, obviously, I just mentioned I never did that before, but in the Riddle of Steel, I love this Riddle of Steel because have you heard of the Riddle of Steel by Atomic Legion?
Mm-mm. I'll have to look it up.
Essentially there's different colored boxes made out of bungee on the bay floor, and you have to run. When you're in the red box, you shoot the red paper targets three
Makes sense.
times, and then you shoot the red steel once. One hit on steel, three hits on paper, and then you move to the next box, so on and so forth. So a little bit of stage planning, I would say, but I think that there's a lot more like leaning and shooting. It's a lot more of a high level, I would say, USPSA. But I think there's a lot of competitors that do both. Obviously, there's
Sure.
nothing saying you can't do both. But
Sure. Why not?
one question I had when you were explaining the process: how far in advance do you get the stage before you actually shoot it?
Depends on the match. So bigger matches, you'll typically have it a couple weeks in advance.
Okay.
Uh, a local match, sometimes it's available that morning. Sometimes it's literally set up. You have like a half hour before the match starts. You can look at stuff. So for me, my local range, the stages are set up the day before. So like the morning of, I'll spend, I don't know, for me, I spend 15, 20 minutes just looking at everything at this point. For someone else, for someone who's newer, I would advise getting to the range about an hour early. Also, just because the stages are put on paper in a diagram doesn't mean they're going to look like that in real life. A lot of times, like the things that you would pay attention to is how many rounds am I going to shoot? Where do I have to start? Right? What might I see? If there are any moving targets, that kind of thing. Like those are things all I pay attention to. But I don't expect to see the diagram cast onto the stage exactly because most of the time it's not. So I don't rely. You can't really rely on that data too much, right?
Well,
So
that's cool to hear that those bigger matches give you several weeks. I like
yeah,
that actually because then theoretically you could set up the stage at your own
you can't
range
set
and
it up exactly. You won't know what it looks like exactly, but
okay,
you
but
can
you
set up.
can kind of get an idea, right? You know the number of targets you're going to have. It may not be the exact
You can
distance between the
understand the shooting
targets.
challenge too, potentially.
Okay.
Potentially, like you can understand if I'm going to have to shoot strong hand only or weak hand only. If you're not having that match, you don't have to practice it as much coming up to it. You can some clubs are very good about posting like exactly the type of targets they're going to use. There are a bunch that are not. So you may see different, like you may see a certain target setup, like, and then it's entirely different. I've
hmm
seen that too. Like it's
Which could throw you for a wrench if you're like, okay, I trained. Well, just like you
yeah.
said, rehearsing it, visualizing it, I think that's super helpful. At those Riddle of Steel matches, we all kind of, I don't look at the stages ahead of time. I think that's the way I look at it is like, if this is a real life scenario, I'm not going to know what I'm getting into until I get there, and then I'll walk through it like two or three times. So I guess it's still, I've done the challenge. I've challenged myself one time where I'm like, I'm not going to look at the stage at all. And I'm
Mhm.
just going to get up to the cone and wait for that beep to go off and then figure it out. Again, trying to like maximize
Sure.
real, but again, there's so many other things I need to work on. I see that's kind of silly now. And
It's not that it's silly. It's just if you're competing against someone else, try to use every rule to your advantage. That is a gunfight too, right?
yeah,
Like if
right.
if if you can use any rule to your advantage, use any rule to your advantage.
Yeah,
Right?
there's
That's
no
not gonna
divisions in a gunfight. There's
correct. There's
you
no
can run
division
whatever
in a
kind of gun you
gunfight.
want.
Like you could do anything. Um, there was something else. Oh, you want to start working on a simple exercise to challenge you with this kind of thing, right? Set up 5 or 6 targets of different varieties, right? Doesn't different distances, different types. You could put two next to each other, but like I wouldn't go crazy putting them all next to each other. Determine the order in which you're going to shoot it, right? Prepare yourself with a visualization or two. and then shoot it that way. Okay, how did it go? Evaluate what happened. Take your time, like the time that you shot it in. Now, change it up to something entirely different. If you have 5 targets, you have 120 different combinations with which you can shoot that. This is called randomized training, and this is a highly effective method of training that execution style, that USPSA style of shooting. So you get the chance to visualize it, run in your head, do it. Okay, change it up. Visualize it, run in your head, do it. Like, change it up. And that gives you a lot of experience in a short time. It's frustrating at times, especially when you're in
Yeah.
training mode trying to challenge yourself. But it is very effective at building that type of skill set that you're talking about that applies to everywhere, not just one specific drill done one specific way.
Yeah, and then you can kind of learn. I feel like that kind of trains you too and how to
Mhm.
plan stages better, right? Like, okay, I shoot the close up target better right out of the holster than I do the further target or whatever it is.
And the you'll find that the better you get, the less it matters. So if you have that five target setup, my intention would be that pretty much every way that I run it is almost the same in time every time. Because in that kind of setup, it doesn't matter a ton. And then that starts to teach you, like, I don't have to have the perfect plan. I have to have the plan that I have 100% trust in and I can execute without hesitation. And that goes for competition and that goes for life, right? The more confidence and trust you have in your abilities and in the fact that you can execute them without hesitation, the better off your things, whatever it is going to go for you. And that's a universal global thing, not just competition oriented.
Yeah, no, I love that, man. This has been an awesome conversation. I've kept you longer than the time I asked you to be here for,
I
so
love it, man.
we can wrap it up. Thank you so much for being here. Everyone, please go check them out. I highly recommend the accelerator course. We'll link in the description for it. I'll also put it over at rangedaybro.com where you can find all of our discounts, our affiliates, our loadouts. Also, subscribe to our email list over there. Like, comment, subscribe, share this video if you guys found it valuable. Thank you so much for being here. And until next time, take care. Thanks again, Rob.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you.